This is going to be a quick video to answer a question I've received a lot of, which is how much money do film, TV, and game composers actually make? It's a great question, and I'm sure that you're at least somewhat aware that there's like an enormous sliding scale financially depending on your past work, an individual's perceived value as an artist in this field, and so on. So we're going to start by breaking down the different mediums available to composers and what can be achieved financially by working in each one. Let's dive in. So there's a ton of mediums that you can work in as a composer. Everything needs music, from films to podcasts to Broadway. In this video though, I'm gonna strictly focus on the most common for freelance modern media composers, and that's video games, both traditional and streaming television, and then film. So let's start with games. Many composers in this medium can actually be hired by the studio that they're working for as an employee, in which case they receive things like benefits and a steady salary. But that's not really what I want to focus on in this video, because when people ask this question, it's more or less in the context of a freelance composer as a contractor, because that's how you're able to participate in all of these mediums at the same time, and when you can do that, it can be both very enjoyable and at a certain point lucrative as well. So I'm currently composing my first game right now, and I know a number of game composers. What seems to be most common here is that when a composer is a contractor, again, not an employee of that game studio, they can expect to get a per minute rate for every minute of finalized music that's actually used in the game. So if you write a piece of music that's 5 minutes long and there's no place for it in the game, you're not going to get paid for that. These rates can be as low as like a few $100s per minute for those that are starting out and working on indie projects, and it can go all the way up to a couple $1,000s per minute of finalized audio. So to be really clear here, finalized audio means that it's completely ready to go. It's mixed, programmed, it's sounding as good as it can possibly be. So in other words, it's not a demo, it's the final product. And that means if you're a composer who doesn't know how to mix your own music, that's gonna come out of your pocket, not the studio's. So like I said, I'm on my first game right now, so while I don't know an exact number of what friends and colleagues make who exclusively score games year round, I feel it's somewhat safe to assume that if you're composing consistently on real studio projects, which means that the game companies are not just being made by 3 to 5 people in a basement, there's a studio, there's a payroll, and so on, I believe composers that are doing a few of these projects a year should be making what I call a comfortable 6-figure salary. I'm gonna do my best here to help you get an idea, so here's an example. If you're getting between $1,500 and $2,000 per minute of finalized audio for a game, which is not uncommon, and there's 60 minutes of music in that game, right there, that can be between $90,000 and $120,000. So now imagine if there's more than 60 minutes in a game, and then if you do more than one game a year, maybe you juggle 2 or even 3, it can end up being a very rewarding experience. Of course, it takes time to get to that level where you receive that per minute rate, but that's like everything in life. You just keep working your way up gradually. So it's important to note though that most game composers do not receive royalties. And these deals are typically what are called buyouts. So the score is owned by the studio, and to my knowledge, most composers do not get a cut of sales. I think that's a pretty rare situation. So when a project ends, that means that the composer's income from that project ends with it. And that brings me next to television, which is where I've spent the largest portion of my career personally so far. Television is a rapidly changing medium due to streaming, and as a result, finances for composers are changing with it. But let's first look at traditional, or what's also called broadcast television. This is what airs on networks like ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, and so on. This can be really lucrative work in my experience because number one, shows in this more traditional format have more episodes per season, and that means that you can potentially make more money because there's simply more content to work on consistently. Also, some of these shows can go on for a long time. For example, I've worked on the series Blue Bloods for 9 years, and that show's going into its 14th year on the air when it comes back. Another example like this off the top of my head is Grey's Anatomy, which has a ton of seasons. So that makes for a very consistent income in what a lot of people perceive to be a less stable line of work. For broadcast television, what a composer might receive per episode is going to vary depending on how well known they are. If you're more established, you'll obviously receive more, and if you're brand new to the game, you're going to receive less. So I believe composers that are more experienced in this field skilled are going to be pulling in between 16 and 20,000 per episode, while less experienced composers are going to get maybe between 10 and 13 or 10 and 12,000. There was actually one series I pitched for. The brief actually included the per episode offer in it. It was for an animated series, so it wasn't an hour-long drama, but it was about 20 minutes per episode. And if I remember correctly, I think it was offering about $10,000 per episode. The most important thing, though, to keep in mind when it comes to composing for television, whether it's streaming or not, is royalties. Every time an episode airs or is streamed, the composer of a piece of music is paid a writer's royalty for the performance of that piece of music. In my experience, just full disclosure, this is why it's so beneficial to work in traditional television. Again, because there can be so many episodes in a single season, and then after they go on for a number of seasons, some shows can get picked up for syndication, meaning that they air multiple times a day all over the world, and the royalties really start to add up. I don't make anywhere close to this example, but there are many composers who I know that make millions of dollars a year in royalties alone. That doesn't include their upfront per episode fee. This is the reason that you might hear older composers telling younger composers, do not give up your writer's royalties, because some networks or streaming services try and do a full buyout to own the composer's royalties so that they don't have to pay that royalty to them. And there's actually an entire group called Your Music, Your Income, which you should check out because they talk about how you should not give up your writer's royalties. It wasn't until I started getting residuals myself that it all made sense as to why it's so important to protect your royalties, because they really do start to compound and it really adds up, especially during times like right now. There's 2 strikes happening in Hollywood. A lot of work is on hold, and those royalties are what's going to help you carry over until production resumes again and you get back to work. So with all of that in mind, it's easy to see a composer who's consistently working in television, especially broadcast, because they pay much more than streaming does in terms of royalties. You can easily make, again, a comfortable 6 figures all the way up to the millions of dollars, especially when your royalties begin to compound over time. Of course, it's very difficult to get to that position, obviously, and today, because of streaming, the opportunity to reach that level is even more difficult. Not only does streaming pay less residuals, but there's also more commonly less episodes per season, and seasons for streaming series can be much more spread out, so you're not working as consistently. So it's a different beast than traditional TV, but there's a lot of great content on streaming, so you might be just juggling more than one series as opposed to just working on 1 or 2 series in a season. So finally, let's look at film. So for me personally, film is sort of like an all or nothing game. I love working on films, and I'm fortunate to have had the opportunity to work on many different types of productions, from smaller budgets to much larger blockbusters. When it comes to the finances, here's what to know. Most independent films lose money. Most have very little budget, and so while the content and experience might be unbelievably rewarding, it's difficult to make a consistent and sustainable income through independent film alone at first. Once you're more established, like everything else, it just becomes easier. Most of the money in film is at the very top tier of blockbuster films, which it's very difficult to break into as a composer. Not at all impossible, but a blockbuster hit is unlikely to be your first, second, or even 5th project is all that I'm saying. So again, it's sort of an all or nothing game. Big films with big budgets will typically have a great music budget for both the composer and live orchestras and so on. Also important to point out is that big films go on to have lots of streaming, which again creates residuals. However, a lot of independent films, especially smaller ones, they never get a streaming deal. If they're lucky, they have a short festival run and that's it. So there's very little on the back end of non-commercial films, and in my experience personally, not an amazing front end to say the least. Which is not to say don't take on films. It's a great place to be creative, and you can meet amazing collaborators that may go on to eventually work on those blockbuster projects, and that's gonna likely be your into that world. It's just good to have a plan, in my opinion, that you're going to balance your film work with television, whether it's streaming or traditional, and also with games if you're fortunate enough to do all of them. And it's important to mention at this point that taking on a project doesn't mean it has to have a financial upside. It could just be something that you're doing creatively as an artist to collaborate with other people that you enjoy working with. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that people that ask me this question do so because they're looking to fully sustain their life by doing something they love, which is awesome. And so that's why I just wanted to point out these different aspects financially. I believe truly in my heart that all of these examples from video games, film, and television, they're all very achievable, because if someone like me who's never taken a single music class can do it, then honestly, you just might be able to do it as well, because you're here, you're interested, and you're spending your time just like I did, trying to learn and grow and work towards where you want to be. I'm hoping that this adds some sort of clarity to help you understand that yes, it's a difficult field, but also there's some wonderful opportunities to get paid well for doing something that you love to do. If you're an aspiring or even working composer looking to level up your skills, check out modernmediacomposer.com. Sign up for the mailing list for access to more free videos and virtual instruments, and you'll also be notified when our upcoming pro tier is released. The way that I personally started was by working with other composers who were already very established in the industry, and that helped me to both learn, grow, and hone my craft while making a very consistent income. If that's something that you're interested in doing, watch this video right here next. It's gonna tell you exactly what skills that you're gonna need in order to do that. Thank you for watching. Again, please like and subscribe if you feel that the video was valuable for you, because doing so, it really, really helps out the channel. And as always, I hope that this was helpful.